Vikas, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashu, for having me here.
Because it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a session that we've been, this has been long in the making. And for a variety of reasons, we've not been able to, we've not been able to sort of do this, right? But I'm so happy that we're finally doing this. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Vikas. I am super excited to be hosting you.
I'm super excited to, I think you have built a great journal and super excited how we can actually do it together here.
Lovely, lovely. Because this is an exciting session, right? I am, like I said, right, I'm super excited to have you and, host you here today. Is largely because healthy snacking as a category is absolutely, the way it's gone through the roof, right, in the last 2.5 years. And I think in general, public has become so much more serious, right, about health in general, right? The good part is that content is done phenomenally, right? Earlier information used to be very inconsistent, right? You were never sure of what's right and what's wrong. I think today, the way content has changed lives, and the good part is that the communities that have come up, right, they've also sort of brought in a lot of nuances, right, which has really helped people understand themselves better, right, their health requirements better, right, and that has been a phenomenal booster of sorts for health and healthy snacking as a category, right. I think there are very few subsets of D2C which have seen the kind of traction that, for example, healthy snacking has seen. Thus, this becomes a very, very important conversation, right? I mean, India is the last billion people market. We have the largest appetite and a consuming appetite. The good part is that, early on, the large part of our audience and citizens in the country have become conscious about, their health. Unlike a lot of other nations, right? Unlike, how we were before 2020, right? So this has been absolutely spectacular. This makes this conversation very, very special, right? Because at Happilo, you're cracking a lot of that, right? I'd love to understand some of those nuances through the course of conversation, right? A lot of what you've done, a lot of what has happened for you organically, right? That makes it very, very exciting. Because I'd love to start this conversation with a quick round of introduction. If you could introduce yourself, you've been a senior entrepreneur. If you could introduce yourself, that'd be a great starting point, and we move into the journey of Happilo from there on.
Thank you so much. Starting off, telling about myself, I think this is, I think, 6th year for Happilo right now.
Right.
We were founded in 2016. Before that, I had a year or so of doing distribution for food companies, where I was learning
Right.
the S&D per se. And before that, I had a good 5 years of experience in terms of retail. I had founded a retail chain in 2011 and expanded that to good 15 stores. That was gourmet retail. And that is where actually the thought of building something in this space, something in the
Right.
dry fruit space, something in the healthy snacking space actually came about.
Right.
There's a lot of dearth of options, very limited options when you talk about being a retailer to want to promote the category in terms of health and snacks
Right.
and dry fruit, right? That is where the concept was born, was inhabited basically. And it took some time. And after my retail days, some distribution, then actually was Happilo to be born. Talk about my personal self. I am a son of a farmer, and my father used to grow a lot of coffee, pepper, and other commercial crops in Sakleshpur. I was born
Right.
and brought up in a small town in Karnataka, some
Wow.
200 kilometers from Bangalore.
Right.
People come there for a lot of resort stay and trekking and also. I'm,
Right.
I'm blessed to be born at a place where it's a great destination, and for chilling out, and it's cool weather. It rains like 8-10 months in a year. So for graduation, for higher education, I came to Bangalore, and then I was, I happened to do a lot of import-export of spices and all in my early days of my career. Happened
Right.
to do an MBA in SMHRD marketing in Pune for a 2-year campus. That was a great experience, and
Right.
and that's how things happened, and that's where the passion to build.
Super. Because, we're going to talk more about Happilo now, right? Dry fruits as a category is, has existed for the longest time, right? I think us as a market have always been very, very sensitive to, consuming that as a category, right? A large part of that has been, unorganized, right? It's largely been, very local distributor oriented, right? Very relationship oriented in many ways, right? I think it's seen this institutionalized industry, right? I'm not going to talk about, how consumption continued to happen, in a pre-2020 sort of an era. I'm going to talk to you about what has happened post-2020, right? Now, one thing that is very clear is that, there's this entire appetite and, awareness that sort of came in. How have you visualized the situation, right? How has 2020 been for you, and 2020 and onwards been for you, right? Because, my sense, and I might want to ask you that question, is because, the existence of any brand in a physical environment was just so much more important, right? D2C, while it's been a category which has been talked about, right, ever since 2017. 2020 has really been the year of disruption, right, for a lot of D2C brands. And that was because, the consumer conversion to one medium. What's been your experience? I'd love to understand that.
I think we were beneficiary during the COVID era. It was a very unfortunate incident to happen around the world.
Sure.
A lot of people, lost their, lives or wealth or the profession, and a lot of suffering happened. But one of the positives was people actually wanted to become healthier version of themselves, right? In today's world, everybody understands they have to eat healthy and stay fit. But prior to COVID, I think there were again talks of being wanted to being healthy or doing healthy, but always it was that they couldn't raise themselves or there's not a shortage of options.
Sure.
When we started in 2016, late 2016. That time it was very tough for people to convince, about dry fruits and related snacks and trail mixes and, peanut butters and bars. So there was, a lot of, hesitancy in terms of people, adopting it. They would always prefer what is easily available and what is well established in their day-to-day life. But COVID was actually an enabler for all these concepts where, people decide that they have to eat healthy, irrespective of cost and other things. And also, I think during COVID, because of being a D2C brand, so that's where the entire evolution happened, where customers started to buy on e-commerce. And on e-commerce, we were one of the largest brand in the category of the health space and the dry fruit space. So naturally, we got a lot of rub of the green, and we in fact grew 4x in the COVID era. And we're also able to, on the back of that, we're able to raise a couple of series funding as well. And a lot of people lost their jobs during the COVID times. We actually were able to scale, say from 100 to 300 plus right now. So, and it was like a great time for us, but we're also daring enough to take some opportunities. There are a lot of local lockdowns, a lot of problems with the local policemen and, local, there was a lot of, zonal, restrictions as well. So we were able to meet the higher departments in the police department, took some special passes. It was difficult to convince them that snacking was actually an essential product, right? Because so we were telling that we supply to a lot of e-commerce, sort of modern trade and all. So they were saying, "Aata chawal to the essential hota hai, bhai, dry fruit and snacks wo kab se essential ho gaya." People at home wanted to eat happen. Today, that luxury 10 years back, where people used to eat it only when they are gifted. Today, actually, it is the other way around. People are actually, adding to their grocery basket at a monthly level. That's what the change has been brought about by COVID.
Super. We're going to some very important points that you highlighted, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about funding. We're going to talk about your, AOVs, so on and so forth, right? Of course, there are, there's some information which is classified, and we would, whatever you're comfortable with giving us a view, I'd love to sort of discuss that. But I'll come to that in just a bit, right? Now, because one problem that is very, very clear, right, as far as this entire thing is concerned, and which is also very, is the genesis of that problem is in 2020, is that, it's become a very, very crowded market, right? For every brand. So while you've been there, you've possibly got the rub of the green because you existed on these platforms for some time, right? That is great credibility. That's a great reference, right? But, a lot of creativity and a lot of entrepreneurs, for example, have come up in this space, right? Some funded, some not funded, right? Bootstrapped. Everybody is trying to sort of position and reposition themselves, right? Eventually, everybody is going after the same consumer. How do you look at that, right? Because, this. So assuming there are 100 brands that have come up, right? Even a small dent of sorts, right? That impairs one's journey and possibilities of growth at a certain point, right? How do you view that? Do you think this is all momentary and eventually, who's going to win the game is going to be who's better capitalized? Or do you think that these smaller brands will have to be looked at very, very sharply and smartly because there are some nuances that they possibly have discovered which you as a larger brand possibly could have overlooked in the process, right? How do you view this complexity which is emerged in the process?
In today's world, everybody wants to have their share of D2C and want the customer to visit their site. Right. So the cost of acquiring a customer has actually skyrocketed. The spends on social media platforms like the Googles and Facebooks of the world has been alarmingly increasing because everybody is trying to get the same customer. So what we did was we are not only focused on growing our own D2C website, we are actually very aggressive and positive on all the marketplaces like Amazon and Flipkart. We are actually doing a good job there as well. Because you don't want the customer to miss out when he wants to go to a marketplace. You want to be there everywhere. So today's world is all about omni-channel. In fact, if you talk about, we also are there and available in more than 10,000 stores in India. So we are available across all modern formats, all airports, all leading, standalone stores, GTA class stores as well. The omni-channel is a way to go for any brand because otherwise, just depending on one channel can be really affecting the overall long-term strategy. And in fact, we are while talking to you, we are in fact just closed a deal with a couple of malls in Bangalore. We are actually opening our own stores as well, so that we want to actually give that experience to the customer, where he can actually experience all our products at a particular format. Because whenever you sell across multiple channels or marketplaces, you cannot give the entire array of the experience of products what you sell. So we are planning to open branch out to maybe 100 stores in the next 12 to 18 months. Though I think today's world, I think a D2C company or a new startup has to focus on being omni-channel to be available for the customer at multiple facets of life, or multiple touch points have to be created. Depending only on their own website would not be worthy enough for a long-term future.
No, I think I completely agree, right? I think experience is something which is very, very important. In fact, every time I speak with a D2C entrepreneur, I want to definitely understand their experiential engagement that they want to create, right? Because experiential leads into one, of course, like you said, right? That touch and feel, which is so much more important in a country like India. But also the fact that you can then go out to do a variety of activities and build a community, right, around that physical presence that you have, and it becomes a moat of sorts in the process. Now, because I would love to understand this, right? When you're talking about an omni-channel approach, right, that essentially also means that you have to very clearly have a very sharp and a solid play when it comes to the SKU base that you have, right? You really cannot. So while on D2C, the environment is very different, right? You're very, very sharp. You are very optimized for the target segment that you're going after, because every single dollar spent, you're looking at an ROI sort of come out of it, right? When you're looking at omni-channel, right, which is say more physical, or when you're looking at physical, right, or blending physical into your online strategy, then you essentially have to, you really do not control who's going to come in and all of that, right? You can only funnel them through media. Eventually, the engagement that happens it's got to be very, very diverse, right? And to very clearly define it is going to be very difficult, right? That essentially leads into one having a larger SKU base, right? What's your strategy on that front? I'd love to understand that. Also, when you increase your SKU base, right, that possibly leads into say some wastages, because you're possibly going to process some of this, right, into a variety of other offerings. How are you looking at some of those pieces?
See, now if you talk about the process and all, I think we are setting up a best-in-class BRC certified plant in outskirts of Bangalore. That's around 1 lakh square feet. Currently, our plant is like 30,000 square feet, right? We have a lot of aspirations to become an Indian MNC going out of India as well, maybe establishing themselves across multiple international countries. If you talk about the experience in terms of stores and the online universe, the line is narrowing now. Earlier there was a big differences because the online customers were online and offline was offline. But due to COVID, that line has actually merged. Today, the same online customer also goes to an offline store, and same offline customer goes to an online store. Thanks to the penetration of smartphones and internet, today that line is not so big. There's not big divide, and COVID has amplified that, and the penetration of, as you are also talking about, the consumption has increased in terms of digital as well. So a lot of data being consumed on the go. People are actually hooked onto their smartphones and all those things. So today, the consumer wants a 360-degree surveys or the approach from a brand. That's how I think the stores actually help bridge that gap. Online, you might not be able to communicate everything what you wanted to do, because still an Indian customer likes to see the touch and feel of the product. The industry is not so evolved, because today even e-commerce contributes largely 7-8% of the total retail revenue. Still around 85-90% lies with the GT. That is because the customer likes to do shopping as an experiential way. He wants to go with his family, go with his kids, touch the product, feel the product, try a sample, and then buy the product, right? That's how the entire digital and the physical is mixing. I think that's the new buzzword, like phygital is what people talk about, right? So it is basically the gap is narrowing now, and the customer is actually the same across. And the experience, what is important, the same customer who sees you on offline might well have come on your website and also buy. So there is no deviation that this customer will not come there. But as the e-commerce is evolving, the offline customers will also shift to online.
Interesting. I'm gonna talk about some of that, right? Especially expansion into tier 2 and tier 3 India, right? But touch and feel is just so much more important. And I think any brand which is touching, getting closer to 100 crores, I think it just becomes important to have an alternate sort of strategy, right? Going forward, and tier 2, tier 3 becomes very important. I'm going to come to that in just a bit, right? Because I'd love to understand, what's the demographic which is consuming from you right now, right? How are you dissecting your market? And I'd love to understand the AOVs and repeats. Information that you can share.
Yeah, I think if you talk about demographic, I think largely our audience is between 25 to 45 today. To target the younger adults as well, we have just signed up with the Marvel and Disney universe as well. So we are going to recently, very soon launch a Spider-Man on our peanut butter label, and we are going to launch Captain America on our bars and trail mixes. You might also find Elsa and the Disney characters with some sweet and savory trail mixes as well. So we want to actually target multiple age groups. In terms of male-female audience, I think we have a kind of 50-50 ratio. There's not much deviation there. And also online, today you might buy from your wife's account and wife might buy from your account. So that universe is, you cannot actually tell you that it's a female or a male audience, but we are largely a family brand, and Happilo stands for multiple times of the day. It might be an 8 a.m. snack or 8 a.m. breakfast option. It might be a 4 p.m. snack, or it might be 8 p.m. snack as well. People who want to have it with their cocktails and mocktails, right? So we want to touch base every individual at multiple touch points. Maybe a corporate life, maybe at a 4 p.m. with their chai, or for a 11 a.m. break. Also with the kids section, we want to target a 20-30 rupee pack where the kid can carry with their tiffin, and the parents are proud to give a Happilo so that they understand it's healthy and there's nothing wrong in eating that. So we want to actually push all that narrative and want to take all audiences with us.
Super. Because I think what's interesting is that, while you, of course, you kind of dissecting the audience in the age buckets and, different orders and so on and so forth, right? But what you're also doing is that you're looking at very specific instances, right? Across, that value chain of consumption, right? Which becomes very, very interesting, right? Because I'd love to understand, what are you doing? I mean, India is a regional market, right? I mean, you're right now, India first, right? What I'd love to understand, and I kind of missed that in the conversation, right? Which is that SKU which is doing phenomenally well for you. I was talking to a founder recently, right, and I was surprised to hear, and this is a company which is doing phenomenally well, and peanut butter is flying off the rack for them, right? I'd love to understand which is that category or which is that product which is doing phenomenally well for you, and second, how are you solving for this cultural aspect, right, which India comes in, because down south the taste in the preferences are very different. Up north it's very different. East west again becomes a big problem, and there also becomes a scaling problem of sorts, right? How are you solving that?
See, we are largely, focusing on tier 1 markets so far. Now we are actually starting to, go deeper and, solve that tier 2, tier 3 cities as well.
Sure.
So largely we are available in, say, 20 cities in India, and we wanted to focus and get that 20 cities going. If you talk about regional taste, we have a lot of, roasted nuts and, a lot of fusion trail mixes, what we do. There actually we also do a lot of flavors. So we actually play with flavors. We launch a lot of international flavors, but we also launch some regional flavors so that we can also get a new catchment going, right? And that is how we done. And for example, now we have just recently launched a dry fruit bar. The dry fruit bar actually contains 0 sugar, no oats, because a lot of people add some oats into it and make it unpalatable for the Indian audience, right? They're not used to eating oats. We like more the pohas and upmas of the world. We're not oats eaters. So we felt that eating a bar with filled of oats and sugar is not what we want to do. We, being a company known for dry fruits and healthy snacking, we actually developed a bar which is completely made of dry fruits. It's 100% dry fruits in it and nothing else. So we actually cracked it, and it is having a great response across multiple platforms, right? And if you talk about our emerging sector, would be peanut butter. Again, we have tied up with the Marvel and all, also because a lot of people want to associate with their superheroes. And peanut itself is a lot of high protein and high fiber, low carb kind of product. So So we are also like to expand in multiple products. And today, I think in terms of dry fruits, in terms of trail mixes, I think we're the largest brand in the category, and we want to expand to other parts of the world as well.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, because we're going to talk a little about funding, right? Now that's something that you've done a couple of rounds of funding, right? You're possibly, one of those, highly funded D2C startups, right? Everybody wants to sort of possibly be Happilo in the process, right? This environment is becoming very difficult by the day, right? I think the matrices are playing out. There's a lot of visibility which is coming in. The other part is, like I said, right? A lot of other offshoots are in terms of smaller competition which is popping up, right? They're all not very large, but they are, resonating very well because of their ability to communicate. There's a community that they built. It's becoming difficult, right? I'd love to understand, how has that been for you? And you have some marquee investors, who are backing it, right? You have somebody very prominent from the venture capital industry who's come in and backed you, and then you also have a PE player which is coming and back you, right? Which is very unheard of when you're talking about the startup ecosystem, which is largely dependent on venture capital money typically coming in, right? Tell us a little more about that.
Initially, I started with very small capital. I started with around 10,000 rupees. So my wife was actually gave me a loan of 20 lakh rupees. That was a very beneficial at a tough time, right? She was actually taking care of the entire family and also lended me all her life savings. Right. I also have to tell you, we actually happened to meet on her MBA days. So she, so that's how it happened, and she trusted me and gave us some 20 lakhs of capital in the initial days. And I was actually a beneficiary of the government scheme as well. The MSME schemes. I actually happened to I was attending a G2 event in Bangalore. There I happened to understand that there are a lot of beneficiary events, funds given to startups as well at very low interest rates. Right. So I then approached 3-4 nationalized banks, and it took a little bit of time, but actually eventually happened, and I got very, very low rate of interest. I got some 75 lakhs of capital. Wow. And on that, I actually invested that to automate my backend. I put in some systems and put in some automation at the backend. For again on the same, I also got subsidy from the government. So I had to always be thankful to the government of India and the startup ecosystem, where I actually got some benefit out of it. And initially that 75 lakhs and the 20 lakhs was actually worth of gold. Today that approximately 1 crore in the initial days actually helped me grow to this scale. So initially for the first 4.5-5 years, we never raised capital. Right. We are trying to raise after our third year. We actually faced a lot of rejections from a lot of investors as well. Maybe we have been knocking on more than 20 doors. Doors never opened. I think finally when it opened, right, we had 100 crore check from A91 partners in last year, right? So I think all the things what I want to tell to all the young startups who want to look at funding and all, but you have to be try to raise funds at a later stage if you are able to maintain that momentum in the initial days. Right. And also rejection as part and parcel of the industry, right? You cannot get demotivated, right? I had to face a lot of. It was like I became so good at pitching, right? I was actually master of pitching after that 20 pitches. So it will take time, but funding will eventually come if you are doing the right process.
Interesting. Because I have chosen not to consciously talk of numbers, right? But I think it'll be very interesting if you could give us a larger view in terms of what are the numbers like, what are the revenues that you're doing, which are the regions which actually outperform beyond the expectations, right? I'd love to understand.
See, for a brand coming from Bangalore, right, and we are very strong in the southern part of India. Mm-hmm. And if you talk about our other markets, something for everybody else, Mumbai, Pune is a next big area for us, and Delhi NCR is obviously a big consuming market. Sure. Because a lot of consumption happens there, and you don't need to teach people to eat snacks or dry fruits there, and they naturally are prone to eating that in their day-to-day life. So for us, the biggest challenge is to convert the unorganized to organized. Right. Here, in the branded segment, there's not many players, and we are the flag bearer to take the unorganized sector into the organized sector. Right. And we are launching very exciting products, flavors, multiple single serves and multi serves, opening multiple stores, touch points, and available across airports, railways. So the overall, the thing is, we want to penetrate to tier 2, tier 3 as well. And for that, we have to change the product mix and make it more convenient and, more at affordable price points is what we have to get into.
Interesting. That's a good point that you highlighted, Vikas, right? Now, I want to specifically talk about tier 2 and tier 3, right? Now, when we talk of tier 2 and tier 3 market, right? While it's an exciting market, right? India is largely tier 2 and tier 3, right? That's where the audience is, and large part of the regions that you kind of highlight, right? Continue to have that awareness of eating dry fruits, right? There is a natural sort of tendency. One challenge which is there in these areas is, of course, one is that of trust, right? Because they've been consuming from their existing ecosystem, the existing retailers and so on and so forth, right? The other thing is that, their ability to afford the newer version of product, right? I think that's question number one. I'd love to understand how are you looking at that. Second, when you're entering these markets, right, because of the CAC, the entire environment of CAC, right, a lot of brands have been looking at an alternate strategy that is building a lot of communities, right, and especially in a tier 2 and tier 3, where there is a certain point of reference, communities become very strong sales numbers, right, at a much lesser cost, which could be more variable in nature, right, depending on how you plan to incentivize people at the last. What are how are you looking at, some of these pieces of left?
Yeah, I think, one of the major things what the lot of brands have to be able to do well is build communities actually, and build a group of people who are actually a micro influencers kind of. Today you see a lot of influencers there on Instagrams and on reels and everything. So the whole thing is that when you build a strong community, you don't have to actually spend a lot of money on acquiring the customer again and again. If you don't have a stronger community, what happens is for every time you are doing advertisement to acquire the customer, then your CAC keeps going and it never decreases. Today there's a lot of thought process on talking about LTVs. When you acquire a customer, right? What is his lifetime value? You don't have to spend again and again to get him. So that is how you can actually want to build a stronger community where you engage him with a longer time. You have a group of people who act like your micro influencers. And we do a lot of activities in apartments, in RWAs, associations and everything, where we try to do a lot of sampling and try to increase our touch points. Only by spending money on say social media will actually never land you that the cycle of the entire consumer. That is very important to do social media advertisements and marketing, but at one time you have to understand and you have to be there in multiple touch points, not only focus on spending all your money on say social media.
Right. Interesting. And what becomes your tier 2 and tier 3 plan, right? Because that's a complicated region. Like I said, right? There's already an ecosystem that they consume from. I was recently in Amritsar, and for example, Amritsar is a massive market when it comes to dry fruits, right? And everybody who's coming in there, and that's also a huge export market, right? Now, there are a couple of established players that are already there, right? They might not be necessarily as large in size, right? But they've become like a de facto point to visit or a point of reference, right? When it's about dry fruits. How do you crack that ecosystem when it comes to tier 2 and tier 3, right? There are a lot of Kabuliwalas, for example, right? That's another brand which is there in tier 2 and tier 3, right? You have a lot of those brands. How do you crack them is what I would love to understand.
See, there will be a lot of smaller format stores in every city in India. Not only tier 2, tier 3, even in tier 1, where traditionally the parents or the uncles have always been buying. Right? People had that experience earlier where people wanted to go to the store, eat some samples, touch and feel and buy. But the market was very unorganized. They don't have any systems in place. They don't have packaging or they don't have any shelf life issues. Because they were taking it off the shelves and taking it home. And it all was based on trust. But today, due to COVID and or due to the advancements of technology, people want convenience at home, right? Then you don't have the experience. Because for example, now you stay, for example, in Delhi and you travel to Amritsar, but next time you travel to Bangalore, you will always depend on a brand which is naturally available, rather than actually searching for that local meva wala in that area. Right. So overall, what we do as a brand is we give a lot of standardization across the country and hopefully across the world very soon. And we also launch a lot of convenience packs, a lot of single serve packs and a lot of innovative flavors we launch. For example, all our nuts which are roasted, we never add any oil to it, right? And we all are oven roasted, all come with great crunch and all are fresh for a good 12 months. But again, you go and buy from a local meva wala, the product will maybe perish in a month or so, and it might, again you have to put it in a jar and gone are the days when people want to buy from a Burmese, right? People want to actually buy from a pack which is resealable, which can be storable as it is, and which they can associate with. Today's people are all about associating with the brand, and it's all about the passion that drives them. People never want to buy something which is unbranded at Burmese and which cannot last the
Right.
So dry fruit itself is an expensive product, right? And people don't want to buy something just to save 5-10 rupees. People don't want to throw the entire pack away.
Sure.
That is where we are able to service the customer time and again and build that trust. We almost sell like 2 million packs every month. So that we are able to do it at a consistent basis, and our repeat rate are close to 50%. So that customer is repeating again and again. So that is what we are trying to play on.
Super. Because one thing that I want to understand, right? Now in a product and the commodity that you're in, right? There's little price elasticity, right? You're constantly under. It's a very competitive space, right? And more often than not, I'm sure you. I'm sure you're addressing this. As well. You're facing this as well, right? Is that you really cannot upprice yourself substantially, right? Unless you process the good, right? When you're processing the good, it's a completely different dimension that you are taking that product in, right? And people, who like your product are possibly and will be ready to pay a higher dollar for that, right? In a medium that you are in, right? In a semi-process sort of a category, how are you looking at that? Because that again is a huge challenge of sorts. or is that not? You've had the opportunities of uppricing your product and and maintaining your margins. What's been your thought?
See, we always wanted to keep our product as close to nature as possible, right?
Okay.
We don't use any chemical preservatives or any laxatives to make the product look good and stay good. We believe that dry fruits by inherent have a great property of staying fresh and being healthy for the human body. And we are launching a lot of products in terms of process. If we say process, we have a lot of flavors. We do a lot of oven roasting. We do a lot of trail mixes. In fact, our bars, I think I'll send you some samples after our call today. So I think you should try our products, and in terms of bars and peanut butters, these are processed, but these are not processed with chemicals or something like that. These are processed in the best natural way possible. We have tried to keep it simple, because I don't think for a food product, you have to make a chemical out of it, right? We are not trying to sell something which is harmful to the body. Food, we have to keep it simple, and we have to eat healthy, and that's what Happilo stands for. We want to keep the product as close to nature as possible. Even our fully processed ones will always be something that it is as fresh as you can eat. We don't want to fill our products with chemicals and substances which are not good for the body.
I think that's a great product thesis, right? But Vikas, what happens to the pricing ability of the brand, right? Are you able to substantially charge a premium on the product that you're offering, or you have to continue to stay cautious on the commodity pricing, right? How are you looking at that? Because that's a complex play.
See, we believe that India is always a cost-conscious market. Here you always have to understand how do you price the product. So pricing at the ultra premium will never help the cost. We will always be little expensive when you compare to an unorganized market, but will always be more affordable when you compare to international brands which trying to enter India. So we always will have that play where we are to the unorganized, we might be little expensive, but again it might be like 5%, but the customer is willing to pay for that standardization, right? For example, a 200 rupees pack you buy from Happilo, or you buy from a 180 rupee pack for the same from the unorganized market. If that lasts only 15-20 days and you have to throw the entire pack, but on the other side you have the pack which runs good for 12 months if it's in the sealed condition, right? So you will obviously pay the 10-20 rupees extra for that product which is staying fresh. You're trusting the quality, you're trusting the process. All our processes are untouched by hand, completely done with automation at the back end. We crack our own almonds, we roast our own pistachios, we do our own trail mixes, and we have a lot of formulations behind it. The product will stay fresh for a longer period of time. So people are willing to do all that. It's not that for 10-20 rupees they're trying to switch to an unorganized brand. But when you talk about an international brand, we are trying to build that international Indian MNC going to the world. And we are definitely maybe 20%, 30% more affordable when you talk about the international brand.
Very interesting. Because, you recently sort of, one of the sponsors in IPL, right? I'd love you to talk a little about that, right? That must have been a happy experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a great moment for entire team at Happilo. I think when we started off, we didn't have such budgets in our marketing. So we always wanted to do some association with IPL. But we never thought we'll pull off a front of jersey with Rajasthan Royals being the title sponsor for them. Whenever Rajasthan used to play the match, we used to feel that that we are playing and we had an adrenaline going, right? So a lot of support for the team. And whenever the team used to win, right, I used to get 500 WhatsApp SMSs stating that congratulations. I was feeling that I won the team as well.
Interesting.
So it was great association. People were actually relating Happilo with Rajasthan Royals and Rajasthan Royals with Happilo. And we proudly wear the jersey in our office every time we get an opportunity to. And we have also distributed a lot of jerseys to our distributors, to our retailers, to our trade partners and everybody. So everybody is very proud of the association, and the team has been also performed very well this year. I think they finished second in the league itself, and there was a runners up also. And I was also there at the stadium as well. And even the owners were pretty humble, and they came to me and watched a couple of overs with me as well, and pretty great association. And in terms of marketing, I think today we got great visibility as well. I think today Happilo is the talk of the town for a lot of people, because we're one of the only food brands which was partnering with IPL at that level, and no other food brand actually had ever thought of doing that. So as a startup, I think we should take risk and we should try to be one notch above and try to do innovative things. So that's what we were able to do, and I think association was great. It was a royal association.
And I'm sure that just motivates every single stakeholder within the organization, right? I think that association becomes just so much more thicker because there is a certain confidence that comes into
absolutely. People, the team is super wired actually. super buoyed, and they're very passionate about it. And everybody has that aspirations to take the brand to 10x from what we are doing currently.
Wow, super. Because what are the next 2.5 years like, right? I would have loved to ask you a 5-year question, but I think unfortunately the kind of times that we are in, I think only a 2.5 year question makes sense, right? Because there's at least a certain visibility that you can have, right?
I think 2 to 3 years down the line, I think we want to achieve say 1,000 crore brand. We want to be at the top line as a revenue level.
Sure.
We want to expand maybe to 10 other countries. Want to open say 100-200 stores in India. So that's what we are planning, and we'll also expand to a lot of healthy categories per se, where we can associate the brand Happilo, because Happilo as a brand stands for happiness and love. So wherever we can spread that, we'll like to spread the same.
Interesting. You've given us in a way the construct of Happilo, right? It's happiness and love, right? Of that coming together. What are some of the SKUs that we can see you come up with, right? What's possibly on the cards that you're say closer to launch? Of course, I don't want you to give out your strategy, right? But I'd love to understand what are some of the SKUs that you.
We are launching a lot of chocolate spreads, which again are healthy. It's made of more nuts and more healthier than what's available in the market. We're launching a lot of butters as well. We're launching flavors also in butter. We're launching with Marvel Disney, and we're also launching the bar very soon as next week. So a lot of innovative products, but we would like to keep the core as dry fruits, and we would like to use all our ingredients will largely be dry fruits, because we want people to eat healthy, and India being a protein deficit country, I think dry fruits are a great protein source as well. So we want to include them in every recipe of ours, try to make it healthier and tastier for everyone. We believe taste and health can go together, and that is how Happilo exists.
Super. I recently was watching, I was watching something, right, out of intrigue. And I was surprised. There's a barfi which has come out, which is made out of white chocolate and dry fruits in it. And it's doing wonders, right? There's a cult that they've built around it, right? And that's by one of the traditional brands, right, which continues to be in retail. Because you've been a story of a lot of grit and a lot of passion, a lot of focus, right? And I think a lot of people are going to get motivated, watching what you've built, with all of the effort that you put in, the way you've done it, right? It's inspiring, it's heartening at many levels. Because as a parting comment, I'd love you to give out, it's very cliched, right? But I think it's very, very important to register this as a point. Every founder has a very unique journey, right? There are elements that motivate them, which are very unique. The construct of them is very, very unique. I'd love you to give out that, that say suggestion, advice to a lot of people who are watching. It's not necessarily a rosy day, it's not necessarily a happy day, right? To sort of say, something that you did worked for you, right? What is it that you would want to pass on to a lot of people who are going to watch this?
See, I had my own shares of tough times. I think 2015-16 was a very tough time.
Right.
So, in fact, I told you, I was living out of my wife's salary. So, and I think father was a great support. So I believe, parent support is paramount. You have to respect your parents, and their blessings and their guidance is very critical. I think my parents, blessed to have parents, and they have guided me well. I think if you talk about the personal self, I think, being a startup, I think you have to run across multiple departments, right? Now, I've been a machine operator myself. I've been an accountant myself. I've been, wearing multiple hats, right? I've done every possible job in the company. So I think staying humble and trying to learn, while you wear multiple hats, you have to learn a lot of tricks of the trade as well. I think that's all actually, will keep you good at the longer run. And also the most important thing will be doing the same thing again and again, and try to be persistent. That persistence is very, very important. You cannot lose hope in the midway, but also saying that you cannot be very rigid to your thought processes. We have to be flexible. With changing times, you're able to be able to pivot the model, not abandon the model or stop the model, but you should be able to do one up, based on the times. When COVID, nobody visualized the COVID to happen, right? So when the COVID happened, we were able to quick enough to go to the departments, go to start our own website, go to expand our distribution in a possible way which doesn't affect people during the COVID time. And thankfully there was no major issues of COVID in our entire Happilo team and family. We had insurance covered and everything. So overall, I believe that being persistent and to be able to do pivots at the time of requirement, to be able to change yourself or adapt yourself to the situation is what will hold you great in the long term.
Super. Because it was an absolutely spectacular conversation. I think it's been very, very motivating at the same time, right? Like I said, right, not a lot of on regular days do you come across a story which is, which is of so much hard work, so much grit, right? And the biggest of all points is, where there are preconceived notions, right? Like you said, you met 20, 30, investors, right? And possibly, that rejected you. But I think, and that's, so you don't really come across a lot of such stories, right? This has been absolutely spectacular as a conversation. My sense is, while of course we've tried to cover some bits of it, right? There are many, many more nuances, right? I'd love to cover that through the course of some other conversation that we do with you, in future times, right? But it's been an absolutely spectacular story. We wish you all the very best. We wish the entire family at Happilo all the very best, for all the stakeholders, for what you're building. I think this is something which is going to be truly an Indian brand, which is going to come out of India and, and spread the love and happiness that you possibly envision for it from India for the world. Thank you so much, because it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Ashu. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with you, and a lot of energy both ways, and loved interacting.
Super. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.